How's going guys, welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Hachishaku was raised by Naruto? Part 1. Shout out to Arashi Uchiha for this story. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. In a faraway land, in a large western village was a very pregnant woman with black ebony hair wearing a white yukata, stroking her pregnant belly, as her husband was beside her who was a monk. With sacred arrows escorting her home. Opening the door to their house he guided his pregnant wife in as she started making tea, stroking her larger than usual stomach carrying her baby. She wasn't sure if she was carrying twins. Or triplets. But she was going to find out. She's on her 5th month. Smiling happily she sat down waiting for her tea to be ready as her husband was going for the door leaving out. Leaving so soon Shin-kun? She spoke gently seeing her monk for a husband nod. I'll return by sundown Retsu-chan he said walking over to his wife kissing her forehead. You promise? Because me and your unborn child would want your attention. Said Retsu smiling gently at her husband as he firmly grasped her hand. I promise. He said walking leaving out the door while she looked away noticing her tea was ready. With Shin. Shin was a 27-year-old monk wearing traditional monk robes colored black and gold, armed with his sacred arrows that purifies yakais. His hair colored black tied into a ponytail. On his way down to the shrine temple with his fellow monks and priestesses alike who slay yakais to defend their village and its people. Having to be happily married to Retsu his wife who is carrying his child. Above a statue where a soothsayer was she was an elderly lady with grey hair, she was praying trying to look into the future since she was a fortune teller. Miss Keed spoke Shin seeing the elderly soothsayer turn to him with her eyes open. Shin-kun what do I owe the pleasure in this visit? She asked in a grandmotherly tone as if he was her grandchild. I was wondering can I ask a favor? The man said seeing her nod holding her cane. I know you can see the future I was wondering if you could tell me what me and Retsu's baby or babies like he asked seeing her raise a brow. Babies? She's carrying twins. Said Keed seeing him look unsure. Well I don't really know her stomach has gotten really bigger, it's hard to tell he said scratching his head. Well then let's see what can we see in the future she said grabbing her bowl and started working her soothsayer skills. Closing her eyes she saw it all. She was receiving visions disturbing visions as her expression had a look of horror and disbelief, looking into the vision much deeper. In her vision she saw a tall woman that will become abomination. Shin who noticed her facial expressions looked concerned for the elder woman. Heed-san. He spoke in concern. She reopened her eyes looking at him with shock as sweat rolled down her face. What did you see? He asked. I saw your child as a girl she said. What? Me and Retsu having a girl? That's wonderful he cheered happily missing her grim expression and sad look. I don't know if I should tell him what I really saw she thought with worry. Thanks I can't wait to tell Retsu. He said now walking off. Oh, Shin-kun. You'll be truly devastated I'm sure Retsu will be too I have to inform the elder monk about this she said to no one in particular. Time skip 4 months later. Standing outside the house that he and his wife lived in Shin had a look of no expression looking down sadly as he recalled being summoned by the monk council earlier today. Flashback. Do you know why you're here Shin? Spoke a much experienced elder monk who was wearing black robes holding beads and was bald with a beard. No master rank I don't know why I am summoned here. Answered Shin as he noticed whole council glaring at him from monk to priest and priestess. Shin we are here to discuss about your unborn daughter Rankai spoke with a gruff. What about her master? He focused on his teacher. We deem your daughter becoming a future threat he said shocking Shin to the core. Ma's master what are you saying he said not understanding what his sensei told him. Your daughter is a yakai she must be killed before she grows Rankai said coldly. No this has to be a misunderstanding. My daughter? She can't be he said not wanting to kill his own flesh and blood, knowing this would definitely hurt Retsu. She always wanted a daughter. Please Shin you must kill that thing for the safety of the village and future children, she will kill said a priestess council. Wait a minute. How do you know my daughter would do that? She's just a good girl. Said Shin defending his unborn daughter. Because I told them Shin-kun spoke a all too familiar voice as Shin turned and saw Keed who looked away from him. Shin please I know it's painful to understand this, but in my vision your daughter is a monster, she is very abnormally tall in my vision, she wears a white morning dress and a straw hat explained Keed with a sad expression. Don't let your feelings misjudge you Shin you have to do what's right for the village's best interests, said Rankai looking down at his student. No. I can't. You're not seriously telling me to kill my own daughter? What kind of father does that? Shin yelled he was conflicted on this. It's better if you kill her before she grows and becomes a threat to society, if you do not kill her then perhaps I will have someone else too replied Rankai. Shin just didn't know what to do he was very conflicted, it was either his duty as a monk or becoming a father. Looking down a tear ran down his face. I'll do it he said emotionlessly. He was having a hard decision. Flashback end. He stood there outside his house looking with a stoic expression masking his saddened one. He didn't know how was he going to explain this to Retsu. Walking inside knowing his wife was in labor. Walking inside the room laid Retsu in her bed holding a big bundle in her arms wrapped in a pink blanket. His eyes widened when he saw the size of his newborn daughter. She looked really big. Retsu turned around staring at her husband with a gentle smile while holding her newborn. "You're here, aren't you going to come see your new daughter?" she said, seeing him walk closer, getting a better look at his daughter. She had his nose, she had Retsu's dark blue eyes and face, plus a small black mop ebony hair just like Retsu's. Thud. Get out. Get out. Leave us alone. Screamed Retsu, who listened to what her husband had told her as she held her baby protectively. "Retsu. Please, it hurts me too. But you have to understand." He tried to reason with her, but she turned away from him. "Get away from me. I'm not going to have you kill our newborn daughter. Do you really believe in those crappy fortunes? That old lady could be wrong about our daughter." Screamed Retsu, who yelled when she opened up her C-section where the doctors did the procedure on her. "Retsu. You're bleeding. Stop. Calm down and listen to me," he said, walking towards her as she backed away breathing heavily. "No. I'm not going to let you. Or those monks lay a hand on her," she shouted, crying, looking at her husband's betrayed expression. "Retsu, I know you're furious with me and have every right to be, but please listen to me. If I don't do it, the monk council will," he said, looking very saddened by this. "Shin, I thought you were better than this, so you decide to put your duty as a monk over me. If it's going to be that way, then I'm going to get our daughter to safety from you. And those idiots," Retsu said, bolting out the door. "Retsu," he screamed, following her. Retsu ran as fast as she could as she looked really weak and noticed she was losing lots of blood since she reopened her C-section cut. She needed to get her child somewhere safe and away from her village and the monks. Looking both ways, she eyed a carriage not too far from here and ran to the back of it holding her daughter, picking up her big baby. She looked at it with a sad expression, feeling her life was fading. "Oh dear daughter, it seems my time is running out. I hope you can understand what I'm going to say to you before I beep away," she said, reaching into her pocket, pulling out a scroll with a note attached to it. "This scroll contains your future belongings. Once you get older, consider them as your birthday gift sealed inside. I don't know who will raise and look after you, but I believe that you will find someone who can care for you and not treat you as if you are a monster, because I have faith that even if you are a yakai, you won't go down that path you are meant to be. I tried to talk your father into not killing you, but it seemed I couldn't get through to him. I knew I should have seen something like this coming, but it's too late to fix it." As she put her daughter in a basket inside the back of the carriage, as her daughter looked at her with her dark blue eyes. "Silly me, you don't even have a name yet. Well, since your father said that you might become tall in the future, I will name you Hachishaku," she said, leaning down, giving her daughter a kiss on the forehead before giving her a bottle full of milk as the newborn Hachishaku gripped her bottle, drinking it. "This is goodbye. I love you, Hachishaku," said Retsu, leaving out the carriage before anyone saw her as she ran in the woods releasing her tears. After she left, the passenger and rider of the carriage returned and was preparing to leave. "So where is all the baskets of food and sake going to?" said the passenger. "Well, we have to deliver this to Fire Country via the shinobi village known as Konoha," said the rider as he cracked the whip to make the horses start walking to their destination to Konoha, unaware of Hachishaku in the back looking around, seeing she was now all alone, not knowing where she was going to, but she hoped she would find someone who could look after her. "Oh," was all she muttered before drinking her bottle of milk. 3 days later, at the cemetery of the dead, on one knee was Shin, whose face was leaked with tears as he stared at his wife's tombstone and grave. He had been in mourning and in sadness of the loss of losing his beloved wife Retsu and his future daughter that is now missing. Flashback, Shin found Retsu nearby a river at the verge of death as he ran to her side, picking her up. "Retsu. Please. Stay alive. Wake up," he pleaded with tears now swelling up in his eyes. She cracked open her eyes, feeling lightheaded. She was almost at death's doorstep, staring at the crying face of her husband. "Retsu. Please don't die. Where is our daughter?" he asked, seeing her not answer away. "Our daughter is in a faraway safe place. She will be in good hands," she said weakly. "Retsu, please don't die. Please," he pleaded, seeing her shake her head weakly. "I'm sorry, Shin, I'm afraid it's too late for me, but please would you do one more favor and last wish for me?" she spoke, seeing him nod. "If you ever see our daughter, please don't kill her. I have faith that even if she is a yakai, she won't go down the path she was meant to be. Will you promise me that?" she said, seeing him look hesitant. "I will try to fulfill your dying wish, Retsu-chan," he said, cupping her face. Flashback end. After her funeral, he would just come and visit her grave, grieving and mourning. When he arrived at the funeral, he was greeted with glares by her family, mainly her father, giving him a scornful scowl. He was just full of guilt. For the actions he caused, he didn't bother to show up at the monk temple. Without looking, he spoke. Shin said a voice as the grieving monk turned around and glared at his fellow monk friend. What do you want, Aoba? Said Shin in a monotone. Is it a bad time to come, he said, flinching at Shin's stare. What do you think? He said, looking away from Aoba. Shin, I'm sorry about your loss. I know some of us are, said Aoba. Sorry? No, you're not, neither of you are. I lost my wife, and my daughter is now missing, gone far away from here, wherever Retsu sent her, spoke Shin, scowling. Why are you here, asked Shin. Master Rankai, he wants to see you, Aoba said, looking at his friend's reaction. No. Tell the old man that I'm not coming, Shin said, shocking Aoba. Shin. You can't disobey Master Rankai's orders, he said, coming closer to his friend, only to flinch and widen his eyes, seeing Shin pull out his sacred bow and arrows aiming at Aoba. I'm only going to say this once, Aoba, I'm not going to see him or any other monk. Tell them to leave me alone in peace. I will come when I have the time. Now get out of here, he said harshly at his friend, who looked away, now leaving as he returned, staring at Retsu's tombstone. He's taking Retsu's death harder than I thought, and the loss of his daughter that's missing. I'm truly sorry, Shin. I just wish there was some way I could help you, thought Aoba, now leaving his friend alone to grieve. With Hachishaku, for 3.5 days the wagon finally stopped at its destination. Onahagakure, the hidden leaf village located in the Land of Fire, top 5 major villagers in the elemental nations. The Peepinger and rider got off their wagon and went to go get something to eat before they could deliver their food to their costumer. Hachishaku had woken up in her basket-like bed as she looked around her surroundings, noticing the wagon had stopped. Her stomach growled, meaning that she was hungry. Without a parent to feed her, she looked a little sad. Popo, she said sadly. Unaware to Hachishaku, an 11-year-old boy with sun-tanned skin, blue ocean eyes and 2 pair of 3 whisker-like birthmarks on his cheeks, was grinning as he reached into the wagon looking for something. In the wagon all he could see was food. Smiling wide, he grabbed his bag and took some fruits and anything else that he could eat, since the grocery stores in his village denies him food and he didn't feel like eating stuff out of the garage. Struggling with his hard life, tired of being treated as the village's pariah by almost everyone, with the exception of the Ichirakus. As he longed for a friend, since no child wanted to be his friend at the academy, given how their parents tell them to stay away from him, he couldn't understand the slightest in why everyone hates him, and why does he always get attacked on his birthdays every now and then. He was tired of it all. He just wished he could either leave the village and be somewhere else and live on his own, or just kill himself to be free from this loneliness and suffering he had to endure his whole life. Before he could grab something else, he heard something. Oh? He turned around, hearing that as his eyes widened in disbelief at what he was seeing. What he saw was a very big baby in a basket just staring at him. Looking confused, he walked forward, dropping his sack of food he was stealing. Looking at the baby by the look on her face, she looked to be a girl, a baby girl to be exact. Wondering whose baby is this and why it's back here all alone, he tilted his head to the side as the baby did the exact same thing. His eyes shifted to a scroll with a note. Grabbing the note, opening it, he began to read it. Dear caretaker, if you happen to find this note and my daughter, who is a baby, please take good care of her. If something should happen to me, I'm no longer living at this point. All I ask is for you is to take great care of my daughter. Her name is Hachishaku. Thank you for whoever that is raising her. P.S. Her future belongings are sealed in this scroll. Don't open it until she's at a mature age or whenever she's ready to look into it. Sincerely, Retsu. He said, finishing the note before looking at Hachishaku, who looked back at him with hope in her dark blue eyes as she reached her arms out at him. Well, I guess you're orphan just like me, eh? Looks like you're my adoptive daughter, even though we're not blood related, he said, rethinking his decision, putting the sack of food down, picking up his daughter that seemed a little heavy and big. The two looked at each other, as blue ocean eyes met dark blue eyes. The two were starting to be connected and regarded each other. Hachishaku smiled as she giggled. Naruto himself couldn't help but smile. I guess he wish was answered now. He could never be alone. He was now in fatherhood right now. Let's go home, he said, picking her up and grabbing her scroll, leaving out the wagon quickly before anyone could see or catch him. Naruto's apartment. 10 minutes later, Naruto carried Hachishaku with her being covered in the blanket so no one wouldn't see her. Coming into his empty apartment, he couldn't help but look around the pitiful place he had to live in. At the age of 6, the orphanage kicked him out and he was forced to live on the streets for a year as the Hokage given him an apartment. Hardly not much of a home, but had a fridge, a stove with only 2 of the 4 burners working, not to mention the small couch. He only had 3 rooms: his bedroom, his bathroom and a vacant room for whoever sleeps in it. Oh? Hachishaku muttered, looking a little confused, looking up at her adoptive father. Well, it's not much, but it's still home, he spoke, seeing her tilt her head, putting her on the couch as he stepped back staring at her. He wondered if he should see his Jai-san and tell him about this baby girl. Shrugging, he thought he would deal with it later. He heard her stomach growl as she winced. He noticed it and realized she was hungry. Now Naruto wasn't the smartest person in the world and had no experience in raising a baby. He didn't know how was he going to do this. He wondered if he could ask his Jai-san for advice, since Naruto had no one else to trust but the Sandaime, Tuchi and Aim. He has to feed his adoptive daughter. Instantly an idea popped into his head. He knew babies like drinking milk, so he found her bottle and looked inside of his fridge to see if he had any milk, only to see he didn't have any. Frowning, he wondered if he could make a quick run to the hospital and find any milk. But part of him thought that wasn't a good idea. It seemed that there was one option and he would have to see the Sandaime, but he knew his Jai-san was a busy person and didn't want to bother him. "Oh Popo," she said, sadly, swelling up with tears in her eyes, about to cry. "No. Don't cry, Hachi-chan. Just wait, I'll find you something to eat," he said, trying to calm her down as he instantly rushed out the door before locking it. 15 minutes later. "Hachi-chan, I'm back," he said, holding a bottle of milk. She turned around, seeing him as he walked forward, giving her the bottle as she started drinking. He had to steal a milk bottle from the hospital that had milk. With a sigh, he sat down on his couch, tired now, noticing she was crawling to him with her bottle in her mouth, cuddling up against him as he smiled. "Well, this is a head start. Starting later on in the evening we're going to see Jai-san," he said, noticing her confused look. "Jai-san is the Hokage of this village. I'm sure he'll know what to do. He might give me advice on raising you," he said, smiling as she burped a little. He patted her back. Hearing her stomach growl again, he sweat dropped, noticed her sheepish expression. "Still hungry?" he said with a sweat drop formed above his forehead. Seeing her, nodded. Hokage Tower. Sarutobi Hiruzen, the third and current Hokage of Konoha, also known as the Professor, as well as the God of Shinobi, was thunderstruck at what Naruto was telling him regarding this big baby girl. This was the biggest baby he has ever seen. He couldn't even take his eyes of the said baby, who was staring back at him with dark blue eyes. What really shocked him was that Naruto told him that the baby imprinted on him as her father. "Is there anything else you might have left out, Naruto?" the Sandaime asked, looking at the boy who was holding his adoptive daughter. "Well, that's all I know, Jai-san," he said, scratching behind his head as the Hokage just stared at him and the baby. "Naruto, I'm not sure if you should raise her alone. She should be given to another family that might want her," the Sandaime said, seeing Naruto widen his eyes and could have swore or prayed he wasn't senile when he saw the baby Hachishaku glare at him with red eyes and slit pupils. "Jai-san, why, I'm sure I could raise her alone. I can do it." Naruto pleaded. He was sure he could raise her. "How can you be sure when you're at the academy?" the Sandaime asked. "Please. I promise. I'll even take her with me. You know I can't trust anyone else aside from you or old man Tuchi," Naruto begged, unaware of baby Hachishaku's glare directed at Hiruzen. "Besides, she's my responsibility. I'll take good care of her. I promised the mother who written this message that I would take care of her," he continued as the Sandaime could just watch how much Naruto wanted to keep the baby. He tilted his head to the side. Now he understood Naruto lived a hard, lonely life, but taking care of a newborn big baby girl. He just wasn't sure about this. "Naruto, I'm sorry, but raising a baby is a very much big responsibility, and I doubt you could handle it. She should be given to another family," the Sandaime said, getting up from his desk, walking over to try and get the baby from Naruto, only for the baby to narrow her eyes, sending an invisible unrelenting force pushing him back away from Naruto. The Anbu in the room appeared, going to attack, but only for them to freeze in place when the baby was secretly sending killer intent at them. The killer intent was so great that it made them beep out. Hiruzen got back up, looking even more dumbstruck. Naruto widened his eyes at this too. "This child is not normal. No, baby shouldn't do this," thought the Sandaime. He knew Naruto didn't unleash that power. That power came from Hachishaku. "Please, Jai-san, just give me a chance. I promise I'll be the best parent to her," Naruto said once again as he held Hachishaku, who looked relaxed and calm with her eyes back to normal. "Fine, I'll give you 1 week to test this. I will test your responsibility on raising her, and if you beat then you may keep her, but if you fail I will have no choice but to give her away to someone else," he said with Naruto smiling and grinning. "Here is the money to buy her what she needs. I'll have someone do a little remodeling in your apartment tomorrow," he said, giving Naruto a few ryos. "Thank you, Jai-san. I promise I will do my best and won't fail," he said, now leaving, taking his daughter with him, leaving the Sandaime to sigh. "Why do I get the sudden feeling the moment he beeps I might receive lots of paperwork if Naruto raises this unknown child like him. I do not want to imagine the type of pranks Naruto will do, and no doubt his adoptive child will follow his footsteps in the art of pranking," thought the Sandaime with dread, not wanting to deal with that much paperwork if Naruto and Hachishaku overdo it with the pranks. In the Shinobi Academy, a certain scarred Chunin sneezed and felt a chill run down his spine, having to look out for Naruto's pranks. With Naruto, they won. Naruto was on his way to a grocery store to start shopping for his daughter, since the Sandaime had given him enough money to buy what he needed for his soon-to-be daughter. He only had 1 week to impress his Jai-san about taking responsibility for a baby. Walking into the first store ignoring the many glares the villagers were giving him while putting Hachishaku in a shopping cart, Hachishaku herself noticed all of the looks the adults were giving towards her adoptive father, narrowing her eyes a little at them. But the adults weren't just staring at him, they were also staring at her too in shock, seeing that she was the biggest baby they have ever seen in their life. Looking at his list, seeing what he had to get, he saw baby formula on the list and wondered where could he find that, pushing the shopping cart forward going on the next aisle to find baby formula. After making a stop and turn, he found it on the next aisle and looked on each shelf, turning his blue eyes. He found it looking at it as Hachishaku was watching her father, seeing him get more than one canister of baby formula, having a total of 8 cans. Then the next thing Naruto got was baby wipes, seeing he would have to learn how to change diapers, which made him shiver a little. He never changed a baby's diaper before, but he could tell it wasn't a fun thing to do. Looking at his list to see what else he needed for her, bath items were important. He got her a scrubbing brush and baby powder plus body wash that was scented vanilla. Now looking on the shelf, he saw a stock of baby clothes, but he knew these weren't her size. Given how big she is, he would have to go to the baby department in order to find her size. Before he could move to another shelf, he bumped into someone. "Whoa, I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to bump into you," he said, helping the person he bumped into grabbing the basket of groceries that fell out the person's hand. "Oh, no need to worry, young boy, you didn't hurt me," said a gentle feminine voice with warmth. Looking up, Naruto saw a beautiful woman wearing an apron and dull green dress. She had short black hair with gray eyes. Naruto noticed her stomach that was large. "Are you okay, young one?" asked the woman, staring at him, then looked towards his shopping cart, seeing Hachishaku stare at her with a cautious look. "Oh my, is that your baby sister?" asked the woman with Naruto shaking his head. "No, I'm actually raising her, found her in a carriage all alone, so I decided to take her in. The name's Naruto Uzumaki, Oba-chan," he greeted but started sweating, seeing her ominous stare and aura. "Oba-chan? Are you saying I'm old, young Uzumaki?" asked the woman in a sweet voice that didn't mean anything good, and he could've swore he saw fire lit in her eyes. Now she didn't look very old, though she did held the curvy body of a MILF. Her breasts were very huge, around double H cup. No, ma'am. I'm sorry," he said, shivering from her gaze, unaware that Hachishaku was amused at the sight before her. "Apology accepted, young Uzumaki. My name is Michio," spoke a woman now named Michio. "Nice meeting you, Michio-san," he said, now walking towards his cart. "Leaving so soon, young Uzumaki?" Michio said, watching him getting ready to leave. "Well yeah, it's getting a little late. I know she's hungry and I have to feed her," he said, gesturing towards Hachishaku, who pouted. "That reminds me, I have to go as well. My husband would be worried about me being out the house this long," she said, holding up her basket of baby items. "Oh? So you have a baby too?" he asked. "Well, I'm having one," she answered, patting her swollen stomach. "Boy or girl?" Naruto asked again. "The girl I'm expecting," she replied. "Ah, cool, I think you'd make a great mother," he said, seeing her blush. "Thanks, you might make a great father towards your daughter," she smiled warmly. "Thanks. Best of luck to you, Michio-san," he said, now pushing off his shopping cart to the checkout. "What a nice young boy. I wonder where is his parents or family relatives," she asked, now going to the checkout herself. At the checkout area. Naruto was at the checkout area now, getting in line. He was ignoring all of the stares he was getting as he focused on the cashier. "Ah, what can I get, yo?" Before the cashier could speak, he glared at Naruto. "What are you doing here, monster?" he asked with a sneer. "Just shopping for a baby. How much do I owe you?" Naruto asked kindly, but the cashier narrowed his eyes. "I'm sorry, in this store we don't serve your kind, now get out of here." You lit. Before he could say any more, he noticed Hachishaku glaring at him, and once he looked into her eyes, he turned white and sweated when his eyes locked onto her haunted gaze. Widening his eyes in shock, he stuttered out. "It sits on the house. You don't have to pay," he screamed in terror, backing away from Naruto and Hachishaku. "Really? Thanks." Naruto smiled, not aware of what his adoptive daughter just did minutes ago, as he carried her and their groceries and were now heading home. Just 6 more days left to prove that he could take care of her. Naruto's apartment at night. Naruto was sleeping soundly in his bed, hugging his pillow, while Hachishaku-sama was in her new baby crib that Naruto recently brought on his shopping trip. In the baby crib, Hachishaku-sama opened her eyes, removing the binky from her mouth as she crawled out of her crib and started crawling over to her adoptive father, climbing into his bed. For a big baby, she could move very quietly as she snuck under her father's arms, pushing the pillow away. She cooed quietly, hugging her father, closing her eyes. "Po-po." Naruto was snoring. He looked like he was dreaming. Naruto's dream. Our favorite blonde sunspot was at his favorite restaurant, Ichiraku, celebrating at the fact he actually beat his graduation, slurping up his miso ramen. He was unaware of who was sitting next to him. "How does the ramen taste, father?" said a gentle female voice sitting by Naruto, slurping up ramen. Naruto turned to the left, widening his eyes at who this stranger was. He didn't recognize her at all. She was very big. She was wearing a white morning dress. Long ebony hair that reached to the middle of her back, and was wearing a straw hat. "Who are you?" He spoke with a light blush on his face, staring at her very large chest. The woman giggled at his reaction and looked at Naruto with a smile. "Oh father, how can you not remember me?" "It's me Hachishaku," said Hachishaku. "Ah Hachi-chan." He yelled, spitting out his ramen, hoping he heard right. "Ho po po." Hachishaku said, grinning at her father. "But how? Am I dreaming that you grew up?" he said, seeing her nod. "Maybe or maybe not, this is your dream after all father," she said, slyly looking at her father's reaction. Naruto stared in dumbstruck. He could not believe this woman was Hachishaku. She looked so damn beautiful. Very tall. And. He couldn't just say the words, he was speechless. He continued to stare at her beautiful face. He couldn't help but love her beauty. He thought Sakura was the prettiest girl in the academy, but now he had a feeling that he was wrong. Smiling at her father's reaction, she reached her long arms out and picked, carrying her father, and was taking him to their home. And dream, Hachishaku's dream. Hachishaku was standing on a pile of corpses holding an Itachi sword. The corpses were Konoha villagers and shinobi. Grinning a ear-to-ear smile, she had brutally killed these civilians. She was tired of the glares and looks they were giving to her younger father. Standing by her father, she glared at the Sandaime Hokage, who was in his battle gear and holding his staff. Dream. Back to reality. Unbeknownst to Naruto, in his sleep after having the dream, his chakra was seeping from his body and were going into Hachishaku, who was asleep in her father's arms, going into small doses. And not just his own chakra, but the QB's too. He was unknowingly feeding her chakra. Morning, day 2. Naruto woke up realizing that it was a dream after all. Then he noticed Hachishaku in the bed with him. This confused him. Wasn't she in her crib? He thought he put her in it last night. She opened her dark blue eyes, staring at him. "Hachi-chan." He spoke, seeing her tilt her head to the side. Hachishaku just stared at him. "Oh?" was her response. Sighed in relief as he got up from his bed, picking her up, getting ready to see what he has planned for today. Making her bottle using the formula while she was sitting at the small table he has. He come walking over, giving her the bottle as she grabbed it from him and started drinking. Making another bottle, knowing how her hunger is. She drinks more than just one bottle. You could say she drinks 5 or at least 6 bottles a day. Now Hachishaku wasn't just a normal baby, she seemed unique in her own way. A normal baby would drink milk bottles 3 times a day or 4 times a day, but Hachishaku could drink more than just 4. Naruto himself was having instant ramen for breakfast, watching Hachishaku chug down her 3rd milk bottle. A good 5 minutes later, it was time he and Hachishaku goes to the Shinobi baby department to find her some clothes her size. Shinobi baby department. Outside of the store, Naruto stared at the store, then at Hachishaku, who stared back at him. "Well, here goes nothing, Hachi-chan," he said, having to take her inside. The place had everything that a baby needed, and Naruto was going to the clothing aisle to find something in Hachishaku's size. The shoppers and soon-to-be mothers stared at Naruto in shock, but their shock doubled when they saw Hachishaku. She was a very big baby. Among the women, Michio was in the crowd watching with interest on what Naruto was doing. She heard them whisper. "Hey, it's that thing, what is it doing with a baby?" asked a blonde short-haired woman who was in her early 20s. "I don't think, but what I really want to know is how in the hell is that baby so big?" spoke a middle-aged woman with brunette hair. "Do you think the monster raped a woman and that baby is his?" spoke a dark-haired woman. Michio frowned at what the women were saying. Why were they calling Naruto a monster? He didn't look like a monster to her, he seemed like a nice young boy to her. There's no telling if the baby is his, he probably stole her, said a bitter silver-haired woman. Unbeknownst to the women, Hachishaku heard them turning her head to them. She gave them a terrifying glare. They flinched at her look. Even Michio was taken back at what she saw. No baby shouldn't have that kind of look. Hachishaku noticed Michio and sent her a calm, neutral stare. Naruto was busy looking for clothing sizes while this was happening. He wasn't looking. "Man, I don't understand the sizes, and Hachishaku is just too big," he said, scratching the back of his head. Hachishaku turned to her father and was looking around for a clothing she might like. "Oh," she said, catching his attention. "What is it?" he asked, noticing her pointing at a very nice dress that was colored white with red flower frills. "Do you want that?" he asked, seeing her nod. The dress also came with a straw hat. Placing the dress up against her, measuring her size, he finally found a perfect clothing for her. "Okay. This one will do," he said with his grin while Hachishaku clapped her hands, giggling. At the checkout, the clerk was going to deny Naruto the clothing, but froze when she saw Hachishaku's haunted glare that scared her. Without any more problems, the clerk let Naruto buy the clothes as he was now on her way. "Oh yeah? Just 5 more days. And I'll keep you?" he cheered as Hachishaku giggled. Unbeknownst to the two that were going home, Michio was watching them leave. She felt like there was something more to Naruto, and this mysterious baby he was raising. She wondered, where did he live? Maybe it was time she gets to know who Naruto is and why everyone calls him a monster. She could see him again tomorrow, or she could visit him. Either way, she was going to know about Naruto. Hokage office, day 3. "Hokage-sama, why isn't Naruto coming to the academy?" I've noticed he hasn't come, it's been 2 days, said Iruka, wanting to exactly know where was Naruto at, and noticed that there wasn't any pranks these past 2 days. Don't fret, Iruka, Naruto is handling a test of responsibility, said the old professor, who was smoking his pipe with Iruka having a skeptical expression. He nearly snorted when the Hokage said Naruto was handling a test of responsibility. What kind of test? Asked Iruka. Come here and I'll show you what I mean, the Sandaime said, pulling out his crystal ball, showing an image of Naruto at the park with baby Hachishaku-sama. Iruka's jaw dropped at what he was seeing. He was hoping this wasn't a prank or a genjutsu. Was his eyes deceiving him, seeing Naruto looking after a very big baby girl? Hokage-sama. Is this for real? Said Iruka, watching the crystal ball, staring at Naruto feeding Hachishaku her bottle. Hiruzen just smiled softly at the scene. Yes, it is, which is the reason why Naruto isn't at the academy, yet he has 4 more days left to finish this test, and once it's over I'll determine whether if he should keep her or give the baby to another family. But so far I could see he's doing a good job, and I'm very proud, said the Sandaime, smiling. Wait a minute, Hokage-sama, run that by me again. Did you just say he keeps her? Naruto can't raise a baby and became a shinobi at the same time. He can't hardly apply himself in the academy. What makes you think he'll beat this test you given him, asked Iruka, staring at the Hokage in disbelief, with the older man frowning. Because, Iruka, I believe Naruto can beat this one simple test alone. Just consider this as his first D-rank mission, said the Sandaime, blowing smoke from his pipe. Iruka could just stare at the Sandaime, then look back to the crystal ball, viewing Naruto walking around the park with Hachishaku-sama in the stroller. So if he sucks this test he comes back to the academy, right? Asked Iruka, with the Sandaime nodding. Yes, and Iruka, don't affect his grades. And don't let any other teacher at the academy do it either. If they so much as do it behind my back I'll have them fired on the spot. Make sure you tell them that, the Sandaime said, with Iruka nodding as the scarred Chunin left the office. The Sandaime could just stare at the scene between Naruto and the baby Hachishaku, but the older man had his attention on Hachishaku. He wondered, why is she so attached to Naruto? Like how she refused on being given to another parent, she just wanted Naruto. He had a feeling that Hachishaku wasn't normal to begin with. She was very abnormally big when Naruto first brought her to his office, and that she gave off quite the killer intent on his hidden Anbu in his office. He wondered, where did she come from? And who are her original parents? And more importantly, why did she imprint Naruto as her father? Those questions just bothered Hiruzen, trying to find a logical explanation about Hachishaku. Just what are you? Was his thought, staring at Hachishaku on the crystal ball, while putting it away, seeing he had paperwork to do. With Naruto. Hachi-chan, allow me to introduce you to Tuchi Jaisen and Amni-chan. Said Naruto, with his adoptive daughter looking at the 2 ramen chefs, as the 2 could look at Hachishaku in shock at how big she was. Whoa. Naruto, she's really big. Where did you find her again? Asked Tuchi, with Am smiling. At a carriage. Was Naruto's reply. She's so kawaii. Could Am, almost wanting to hug Hachishaku, with Hachishaku giggling. Po 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 po. She chanted, giggling while clapping her hands. She's talking? Asked Tuchi. Nah, she always says that, Naruto said, slurping up his ramen. So how old is she? Asked Am, poking Hachishaku's cheek. Well. Jai-san did say she looks about 3 days old, said Naruto. 3 days old, and she's already drinking a bottle on her own and talk. That's strange, most babies don't do that, said Tuchi, with a frown, staring at Hachishaku, who stared back with her own frown. Well, I have no idea where she's from, but it doesn't matter, I'm taking care of her. Said Naruto with a proud smile, with Hachishaku smiling too. Po. She said in excitement, smiling, waving her arms around, with Naruto, Am and Tuchi smiling. At Naruto's apartment, Naruto was busy changing Hachishaku's wet diaper before throwing away the diaper. Hachishaku crawled on the floor, playing with her new toys, playing with her rattle, and playing with a chibi doll. Before Naruto could make her a bottle, he heard a knock at his door and wondered who could that be, hoping it wasn't his mean landlord. Opening his door, his eyes widened at who he saw. Hello, young Uzumaki, spoke a soft female voice. Michio-san. He said, shocked, seeing her come to his apartment. He did not expect seeing her again. The pregnant woman was now wearing a light tan dress and a pin on her short black hair. What brings you here? He said, very surprised. Hachishaku peeked her head out the corner, staring at her father's visitor, and realized it was Michio. Well, I thought I should visit you, Naruto-san, may I come in? She asked, turning her gray eyes at Hachishaku in the corner of the room, who was also looking back at her. Well, sure. He said, letting her in his apartment room. Michio frowned, looking at the place Naruto was in. Why did he live in such a terrible place like this? I know it's not much, but it's my home. He said, noticing her look. She nodded, but it worried her of how he was living. Sitting on the small couch with Naruto sitting by her, Hachishaku crawled near her father to keep an eye on this woman. So what brings you here? Shouldn't you be with your husband? He asked, seeing her shake her head. My husband is on a business trip, he won't be back in another 2 days. I saw yesterday at the baby department, she said. Did you? He said with Hachishaku frowning. Yes, so pray tell me what were you doing and how is she? She asked looking at Hachishaku-sama. Oh Hachi-chan. She's okay. She's really happy. I only have 4 more days left to keep her. He said with glee with Michio having a soft smile. That's great, Naruto-san. I've been wondering, I get that you're raising a baby and is all alone, may I ask this one question? She asked with Naruto going tense, having an idea at what she was going to ask. Sure, he said with Hachishaku having her full attention on Michio. Where are your parents? She asked with him flinching and looking away. I don't know, I have no memory of my parents. I don't know if they are alive or dead. He said sadly, missing Michio's shocked expression with her hand on her mouth. I've been alone all my life, ever since I was born I was in the orphanage, he said, hearing her gasp. That explains everything. But why does everyone think he is a monster? Was her thought. I'm sorry to hear, she said, putting a hand on his shoulder in comfort. It's okay, he said with a tear in his eye. Why do everyone call you a monster? She asked, noticing him flinch again. I don't know about that either, everyone hates me aside from Tsuchi-san, Ni-chan and Hokage-san, Naruto said sadly. Life just wasn't fair. But Naruto-san, how could everyone hate you? You seem like a nice young boy to me. She said looking in disbelief. That's the thing I want to know, why am I hated, who are my parents, I want to know everything, he said with Hachishaku nuzzling her big head against her father in comfort. Oh Popo, she said in semi-sadness, still nuzzling against her father. I hope someday you will find the truth, Naruto-san. She said while hugging the boy as he was cushioned up against her big breasts, having a semi-blush. Naruto did as Hachishaku scowled seeing this woman hug her father like that. Thank you Michio-san, he said hugging her back. Well, I best be going now, it's a bit late, you know, Naruto-san, if you want, you and Hachishaku can sleep over my house for 2 days until my husband gets home. She said walking to the door with a slight smile. Really? Are you sure? He said, not believing what he heard while Hachishaku was watching her cautiously. She wondered if she could trust this adult. Well, I am feeling a little lonely and would need some help around the house with my husband gone, she spoke. Alright. Me and Hachi-chan will come over and stay there for 2 days, let me pack up. He said smiling, now getting prepared. Okay, I'll wait for you outside the hallway, she said, leaving out the door before sending a glance at Hachishaku, who was frowning at the pregnant woman. Hokage office. Hiruzen looked impressed with the scene. He was glad that another adult wouldn't shun Naruto or hate him. It seemed that Michio wants to befriend with Naruto, which seems like a good thing. He needed someone else besides him, Tucci and AM, to look after his well-being. Minato and Kushina, if only you could see how Naruto is doing the Sandaime, he said, putting away the crystal ball and getting to work on his paperwork. 2 days later in Michio's house. During the past 2 days, Naruto and his adoptive daughter were welcomed into Michio's house while her husband was away on a business trip. Naruto had been a great help to Michio in her house. She shouldn't overwork herself to do everything, not wanting to put stress on herself or the baby that she was carrying inside her. Naruto helped her with the groceries, helped clean house, anything while she did the cooking and washing of dishes. She even looked after Hachishaku, well, when she sent Naruto to do an errand for her. It wasn't easy for Michio to gain Hachishaku's trust, since the baby didn't entirely trust her, yet Michio won over Hachishaku, who treated the baby as sweet. The baby and Michio were starting to get along. The only adults Hachishaku trusted with her father was Tucci and AM. Now she trusted Michio the Hokage. She did not trust him the slightest. It was going to take some getting used to trust the Hokage. Naruto was glad and happy that he spent his time here in Michio's house helping her. He didn't want her to think he was a freeloader, taking advantage of her kindness and generosity. At the same, he noticed Hachishaku was opening to Michio, which made him happy. He knew she didn't trust Michio, but was glad the two were getting along. He also spent more time with his daughter, who enjoyed being by her father. Now sitting in the living room watching TV together, the three of them were also eating snacks as a knock on the door could be heard. Humming, said Naruto, who was going to get it, but Michio stopped him. Wait, Uzumaki-san, I'll get it, you stay with your daughter, she said, now going to hit the door, wondering who it was. Walking over to open the door, she gasped and smiled. Michio-chan, said a male voice as the man hugged her. Honey, she said, hugging her husband back. The man had black hair and glbeeps on, wearing casual clothes with his shirt white and pants tan color. It's so great to have you back here, Hayama, said Michio as he chuckled looking at her. And had to give her husband a name since he didn't have one in the Hachishaku doujin. How was the trip? She asked, seeing him frown a little. It was a bit boring, wanted to come home and look after you since you had to do everything yourself. The doctor said you shouldn't overwork yourself with a baby inside you, he said with her smiling. Actually, Hayama, I've had help while you were gone, she said, seeing him raise a brow and look confused. Who helped you? He said, but then his answer came when he heard a voice. Michio-san? Are you okay? asked Naruto as he walked to where Michio was as Hachishaku crawled following her father, surprised seeing a man with her. "Honey? Who is this and why does this boy have a big baby?" said Hiyama looking at the boy then to the baby Hachishaku who was staring at him. "Honey, let me explain, his name is Naruto. And the big baby is Hachishaku. I let them stay with me for 2 days and help me around the house and groceries," she said as her husband had a fearful look and she could tell something was going through his mind. "Michio, can we talk alone please?" he said seeing her frown a little, then she looked to Naruto. "1 minute Naruto-san," she said with her husband grabbing her hand and lead her to their bedroom as Naruto looked confused as he and Hachishaku tiptoed to their bedroom door that was closed putting their ears up. "Michio-chan, I don't think it's a good idea keeping that boy here," he said with her looking shocked. "And why is that, Hiyama-kun? He has been a great help to me these past 2 days, what's with you?" she said. "Honey, that boy is a troublemaker, we can't keep him here and let him into our life, what if he endangered our baby?" Hiyama said but flinched when her expression went angry. "Does he look dangerous to you?" "Because he doesn't to me. He's a gentle soul." "How dare you say something like that when you haven't gotten to know him?" she retorted with a glare. "Michio, please listen to reason. He's a monster. He shouldn't be trusted. The last thing I want is for him to put you and our baby in danger." Hiyama said back. "I've spent 2 days with him and he has not caused me any trouble. You're just like everyone else who sees the boy as a disease or something." She yelled back she couldn't believe her husband was looking at Naruto like how all the other villagers were. "What's with that baby of his? Why the hell is she so big?" he asked. "That's none of your business. That's Naruto's business. And his alone. I can't believe you would think of Naruto like that. How would you know if he's bad?" she said still glaring at him. "Because me and my co-workers once discussed about the boy, he's a danger. One of my friends say he is a monster in human skin," said Hiyama before he could finish that sentence. Michio slapped him so hard that he looked at her shocked. She has never struck him like that before. "How dare you say that? He is the nicest boy I have ever met. Your friends don't know what they're talking about. You don't know or understand the life this boy has gone through," she said leaving their room. "Michio, wait," he yelled trying to talk sense into her. "Naruto. Hachi-chan," she yelled looking around for the two, turning her glance at the door. Her eyes widened in horror. She realized they heard her argument with her husband and ran off. "Oh no," she said going to run after them, but her husband caught her arm as she glared at him. "Michio PL," he said as she shoved him away. "Don't touch me. This is all your fault," she hissed running out the house to find Naruto and Hachishaku. "Naruto," she yelled running down the street looking for him as she started running to his apartment, hoping that was the first place where she'd find him. "Michio, wait," Hiyama yelled running after her. But Naruto is at his apartment crying with Hachishaku trying to comfort him. "I guess her husband didn't want me there. Why does everyone think I'll wind up hurting them?" he said sadly with Hachishaku looking a little sad. "Ho," she said sadly nuzzling her big head against him. "Well, Hachi-chan, it looks like it will be just us for now on. I doubt Michio or her husband wouldn't want us in their life, afraid that I'll endanger her," said Naruto as he heard a knock at his door. "Naruto, open up. It's me. Michio. Please let me in. Forgive my husband," the woman pleaded. "Michio-san, please go back home, your husband could be worried that I might hurt you," he said sadly while she frowned shaking her head. "Naruto-san, don't listen to my husband. He doesn't know you like that. Open the door, I'm sorry," she said outside the door hoping he would open it. Naruto wanted to open it but just stood there as Hachishaku looked from her father to the door. She nudged her father to open the door. With courage he decided to open the door as she ran up to him and hugged him. "It's okay, Naruto-kun, just give my husband some time to get to know you. I'm sure he will open up to you," she said, still holding him in the hug with Hachishaku joining the hug. "But what if he doesn't?" he said with her wiping his tears. "I don't know, but I promise you his eyes will open. See just how much of a nice boy you are. Including how much of a good girl your daughter is," she said with him smiling a little. "Come back to the house, I'll cook dinner while you and my husband get to know each other," she said with him looking away. "Aye," he said but saw the pleading look in her eyes. "Please stay for one more day and you can go to your own apartment," she said seeing him sigh a little. "I guess I'll stay for one more day," he said smiling lightly as she smiled. As the three turned their heads seeing Hiyama standing there, he flinched when he saw Hachishaku's death glare which made him step back. "Hiyama. They are staying with us for one more day, is that alright with you?" Michio said glaring at her husband with him nodding his head dumbly. "Good. Now let's go home and cook dinner," she said smiling as they all head back to the house for another long day. As Naruto and Hachishaku only had 2 days left, Hiyama would have to get used to Naruto, but he wasn't really worried about Naruto. That baby Hachishaku scared him. No baby shouldn't have a terrifying death glare. He had a feeling just what did his wife see in both Naruto and Hachishaku. At night, Naruto was asleep as Hachishaku slept with him. They were sleeping in a vacant bedroom Michio had offered them while Michio and her husband were sleeping together. This was Naruto's last stay here in Michio's house. Tomorrow for sure he would go back to his apartment and raise Hachishaku for the last 2 days to beep his test for Hokage Jiji. After the commotion between Michio and her husband simmed down, Naruto returned to her house along with Hachishaku as they both ate dinner at the table with Hiyama, trying to start a conversation with Naruto and trying to get to know the boy better if his wife knew Naruto. Sleeping peacefully as Hachishaku clinged to him in her sleep, not letting him go as she was unknowingly absorbing her father's chakra. In the QB's chakra it was pouring into her own systems. Naruto's dream. Naruto was sitting on top of the 4th Hokage's head, looking at the view of the village. This was one of his favorite places to be alone in peace, and not in the village running for his life from his attackers that go after him every now and then. Looking up at the clouds he could see several faces of the people he's met in the clouds. So far he saw Itachi and Ayam in the clouds, Hokage Jiji, Weasel-san, then there was Michio who was starting to be like a mother to him. "Beautiful is it, father?" said Hachishaku, making Naruto jump when he saw her again. "Akachi-chan," he yelled in shock, not expecting to see her again in her adult form. She looked old enough to be his mother. "Sorry for frightening you like that, seems I have a habit of doing that," she said, stroking her ebony hair. "You think? How are you? So big and grown up?" he asked, staring at her in disbelief. This was the second time he has seen her in this adult form, seeing her wear a long white morning dress and a straw hat. She giggled at his reaction. "Well, father, guess you could say I hit puberty early and much more developed than many other women," she said, smiling, putting her long slender arms under her breasts that were K-cups. Naruto blushed, staring at her breasts as he looked away, not wanting her to think of him as some pervert. "What's the matter, father? Aren't I attractive?" she asked, batting her eyelashes, trying to look innocent and pretty. "Don't look at her breasts. Don't look at her breasts. She's my daughter, for crying out loud. Even if she's not by blood." He yelled mentally in thought with a crimson blush on his face, but failed as he stared into her beauty. He couldn't help but love that beautiful, gentle expression of hers. "Judging from your look, father, it seems that you do think I'm attractive," she said, smiling with a light blush on her face. Stuttering and blabbering out words, he couldn't find what to say as he looked surprised when she sat near him and pulled him closer, with him being in her giant breasts that were fuller and soft. He inhaled her scent. She smelled like vanilla. It smelled so sweet that he loved it just by being so close to her. For an hour they sat there on the head of the 4th Hokage, watching the sunset with Naruto sitting on her lap with her beep on top of his head. "Hachi-chan," he said, seeing her look at him. "Yes, father," she said, looking at him with her dark blue eyes. "I promise you I will be the best father to you. Someday when I'm Hokage I will teach you and train you how to be a shinobi." He said with conviction as she curved a smile. "I love you, father." She said, staring at him with such affection. He smiled back at her. "I love you too, Hachi-chan, together the both of us will be an awesome pair," he said as the dream ended. Reality. Naruto opened his eyes, sitting up, yawning as he looked at the clock, seeing it was going on 6:15 am. Then he looked at Hachishaku, who clung to him, not wanting to wake her or disturb her dream. He decided to lay back down and sleep a little longer, seeing it was too early. Little did he know Hachishaku cracked open her eyes, staring at her father with a grin. So this part ends here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, so quickly like this video for second part of this series. And comment down below your thoughts about this series. And now it's time for me to go, bye.